Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Extra.
Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra on UBC TV. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono, in case you've just joined, and we are continuing with our discussion that is the World Wildlife Day, which is going to be celebrated tomorrow, and with focus on conservation and protecting wildlife. Now, earlier on, I introduced to you my guests, whom I have, that is Musingo David, who happens to be the Manager Education Information at the Uganda Wildlife Conservation and Education Center. Then just next to me is Sharon Kamuganga, who happens to be, that is the Human Wildlife Conflict Manager at the Uganda Wildlife Authority. Now, all these are working and dealing with conservation and protection of wildlife in Uganda. Now, tomorrow being that day, which is going to be celebrated in Tororo District at King George Stadium, we want to focus more onto the day as well, because already there have been even activities that have been set up, and some are already underway. Others are still going on to ensure that it gives the relevancy, it attracts the attention it needs for Ugandans to know that wildlife is very important. Wildlife is something we should be protecting. And here I'll begin with Sharon. Sharon, we know we are going to be in Tororo.
Yes. And
according to some clips I've gotten, it seems all is set, all is done now. Why Tororo, and what are the celebrations going to be like?
Well, the celebration started way, at the beginning of February. We have been gearing up. The Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities has had several engagements and programs before the D-Day so that we can make people aware and put them in, this mode of celebration of our wildlife and our biodiversity. So we started with conferences. We've held a few conferences. Yesterday there was a public lecture at the Uganda Museum discussing about wildlife, discussing about where we need to conserve, discussing about why we need to partner. This year's theme, like we said, is partnerships for wildlife conservation. Why do we need partnerships? And why do we need to work with people in protection of wildlife? So we have had a crane festival in Zimbabwe that was held in Zimbabwe on the 27th of February. There are school competitions that are happening. Actually, right now there are competitions in Tororo taking place. There were tertiary institution around February. There were quizzes and competitions, and we select the best out of these. And of course, all this is hinged around the theme and protection and conservation of wildlife. So there's a lot that is happening as we gear up for tomorrow. Everybody is going to be in Tororo. This year we have taken it to Tororo. This is what we do every year. We go to a different location, to a different, district around Uganda to popularize wildlife, and also because of their efforts that have been done, because wildlife is for all of us. It's not that it is for Wildlife Authority alone, no, but everybody in this country has a role to play in the conservation of wildlife. So yeah, that is what we have done so far. We have had several engagements and several, talks and conferences and, exhibitions that are going to happen tomorrow, yes.
Well, just to let our viewers that because of that deliberate aims to protect wildlife in Uganda, we've registered a number of success. For example, from 1983 till 2021, from 1983 and 2021, buffaloes have increased from 25,000, and as we speak, we are looking at 44,163 buffaloes. That is a very good move, because around 1988, 1995, around there, these were meat because of the insecurity, so their population was reducing very fast. We have elephants. These have increased from 2,000 between the period of 1983 to 2001, and now they stand at 7,975. Those are elephants increasing. Now we go to giraffes from 350 to 2,072. Similarly, mountain gorillas have increased from 320 to 459. This is not so much of an increase. I don't know why compared to the rest, what explains that. Yet they are one of the key attractors of people to come and look at. But before even David, before we dive so much into tomorrow, there's one thing that always when we talk about protecting the wild. You come from the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center. Why have we always remained with one zoo, if I may use that? When you go to other countries, read their regional zoos, you know. But when you talk about you have to come to Entebbe, you have to come to Entebbe, over these years, why haven't we thought of that? If we are ever thinking of this, what stage are we in terms of implementation?
Robert, that is a very good question. We have been having only one national zoo, the best of this kind in East and Central Africa. But as I talk now, we have finalized plans to establish 4 regional zoos across the country. We are going to establish a zoo in Mbale. We are going to establish a zoo in Gulu. We are going to establish a zoo in Fort Portal, Chekekwa. In Fort Portal. We are going to establish a zoo in Mbarara. And we have secured land, NFA land, in those cities. To begin with, we have secured 60 acres of land at each of these sites here. Why are we establishing these zoos? Because not every Ugandan can make it to Entebbe.
Yes.
The numbers that we get, as I said, is a drop in an ocean. 400,000 people coming to Entebbe out of 45 million Ugandans. This is a very small number that we may not impact on well. So I want to thank the government of Uganda and other stakeholders. I want to thank NFA for giving us land.
Yes.
The first zoo is going to be built in Mbale, then we move to other regions. And we have secured funding for that. So I think I've answered your question. These zoos will be providing extension services like what we're offering in Entebbe here. Conservation education conservation education. We are going to do breeding of endangered species. We are going to do rescue, rehabilitation, especially with emphasis on species from that region. Because right now, I don't think, as much as we rescue wildlife from community, but some of the animals, we may not rescue them from those far areas. In West Nile, in Chitugum, you may find some of these animals are being killed because we are not there. But also, we are strengthening the wildlife clubs. Opening what we call regional coordinating offices. We are going to recruit them. And I'm the chairperson board of trustees of wildlife clubs of Uganda. And we are going to revive them. So we are going to use these centers, again, strengthen the wildlife clubs of Uganda across the country so that we can really promote conservation of wildlife in this country.
Now, a quick one also. Going back to the day which is going to be celebrated tomorrow, most of the times I've taken keen interest in looking at these these UN set-aside days to be celebrated, like this one is. That's this wildlife. But to the Ugandan, of what relevance? We are going to see key government officials going. His Excellency is expected to be the chief guest at this. How relevant are such days How relevant is this particular day and celebration to the ordinary Ugandan?
Very good. This on 20th of December 2013, the UN General Assembly proclaimed 3rd of March of every year as World Wildlife Day. And why was it proclaimed? It's because of the following reasons. One, to raise awareness about wildlife conservation. People must appreciate why wildlife should be what? Conserved. The other reason why this day was declared was to know the benefits, the value of protecting or conserving these treasures. How do local people, how do stakeholders, how do partners benefit from wildlife? That's the reason why this day was declared. Another reason why this day was declared was to look at challenges affecting wildlife and finding solutions together. So for us, tomorrow, we are heading to Tororo at King George Stadium, where you have said, of course, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, will be the chief guest. We are going to demonstrate, we are going to bring all our tools, our programs. If you want to participate in wildlife farming, come and get information. Because we have what we call, my colleague here will be talking about it. How do I benefit from wildlife? There are what we call use rights. There is this one like ours, Class E, Education and Science. How do you use wildlife to educate Ugandans, like the way UEC is doing it? There is Class B, to do with farming. We are developing a program on how to do farming in ostriches. South Africa, in Cape Town, people are very rich because they are farming in ostriches, which can even bring more money, fetch more money than cattle farming. Do you know that we have our indigenous ostriches in Uganda here? The only region where we have ostriches is Karamoja region, in the Pianupe, in the Chidepo. But there is pressure on this wildlife. Can we breed ostriches? And that's what UEC is doing, to develop a program, encourage people to breed what? Ostrich, so that you can benefit.
How would I benefit from breeding? For people to come and look at what I have, to other eggs, is this something they eat? What is it that you want to do?
We discourage people from going to capture wildlife from natural environment. But the law allows you to breed some of these species and utilize them sustainably. Sustainably.
I love
you
the
breed
word.
them. Before I tell you how we can use these species, our great-great-grandfathers or our fathers lived with nature sustainably.
Yes.
Because they knew how to harvest. They could go and harvest maybe an old species that is not producing. You pick one, go and dry it, eat it for about 6 months. These days, with this trade, international trade, someone goes and harvests Uganda cob or buffalo. Within one day, 20 buffaloes have been harvested. Commercializing, exporting it. That will lead to extinction of species. The way rhino got extinct in this country. We just brought rhinos back. Our northern white rhino got extinct. By the way, we shall never get northern white rhino. And Uganda had them. The ones that have remained, I think there are only 2 female in Kenya in the conservancy. Our northern white rhino went extinct. So likewise, if we continue with that trend of harvesting wildlife unsustainably, our children, our grandchildren will never see these treasures that God gave us. Why? The reason why Uganda is called part of what? Of Africa. So I gave an example. Ostriches, you can farm them and get meat. A kilogram in South Africa of ostrich meat costs about 20,000 Ugandan shillings. 1 kilogram. And ostriches are simple to raise. Very small, and we are providing that. We are coming up with a program, what area is needed to farm in ostriches. I'm giving an ostrich. What about other species? In Uganda here, people are farming in crocodile, in Burma and others, and are getting money. For example, the crocodile skin or even the ostrich skin can fetch a lot of money for making bags, for making shoes and whatever. Very expensive what? Materials. So this, we are going to use this day tomorrow to sensitize Ugandans. How do we improve our livelihoods by utilizing these resources sustainably, living in harmony with wildlife, not only harvesting them directly, but also through ecotourism. Ecotourism is very sustainable, where people, you have a wetland, you have a forest, you develop it, you work with people, and you get tourists coming there. Ecotourism is a better form of tourism because it involves economics. People getting money. When tourists come, you are able to earn money. You put money in your pocket. And then even tourists get educated from the community. Because the other old-fashioned tourism was that a tourist has money, comes and does whatever he wants in the community. Whether he abuses you, does what? I have my money, I have toured. So the new concept is ecotourism. And that is sustainable in terms of sustaining or conserving wildlife. So these are the messages that we are going to pass across tomorrow. So we want to urge everybody. Well, join us in Tororo.
I have a few questions that are coming in here through our viewers, and allow me to read them. Good stuff for wildlife. How far will the relocating of white rhinos in Agaja Game Reserve in West Nile? I think this one wants to know how far you've gone towards that. Then thanks for the program, Robert. I sure appreciate our guests from Uganda Wildlife Authority for the continuous sensitization on wildlife. My only a micro concern is it's not much close to Africa cultures that were disconnected with wildlife. In fact, if any of the particulars, Buganda has a lot to promote wildlife through its cultures and norms. Sebo abaganda beddira ebisolo n'ebirime bingi era tebabirya. That is an organic way of conservation. Thank you. Basajja Baraba Mugera from Sese Island. Sebo Msajja Kabaka webali kuba kumukutungo olaba. So he asked about relocation of the white elephants.
The white rhinos.
The white rhinos. How far have you gone?
Well, we are in the process of relocating them. A lot of work is being done. We're meeting with the district leadership around Ajai to make sure that we secure a good habitat for them so that we can relocate them. Yeah, so the process is underway, and yeah, we are doing so much as Uganda Life Authority. Then the other gentleman who asked about...
he was talking
about... It is true, Africans are very close. Our totems are animal related in Buganda, even not only in Buganda, even the whole, even where I come from. So the challenge is, like Mr. Msingo said sometime, he said that this generation now, we are kind of detached, unlike the generation before, where they lived with wildlife, where they appreciated it. So it's important that right now we go back to the young children, the young generation, teach them about this. As parents in our homes, we teach them about our totems and why it's important to conserve these animals, why we shouldn't eat them. So that's another way of trying to instill in these children and this generation the love for wildlife and why we should protect it and sustainably manage it. Because it's important. Wildlife is food for us. It's fuel. It is medicine. We use it for clothing. We use it for so many things. We cannot live in this world without wildlife. So
yes,
he was right.
Yes, in addition to what my colleague Sharon has said, that's the best system to conserve wildlife, through totemic system, through culture, having those values. As we had said, there's a detachment with new generation. In Uganda here, totemic systems are very strong, especially among old people or people above 50 years. They really appreciate the totemic system, and it's connected now with conservation. Wildlife has been conserved. Not only Uganda, but as she has said, across the country. Like when you go to Langu, they have amuha, the totem. Amuha is a rhino. So they could protect this flagship species, rhino. As you protect a rhino, its habitat, as a flagship, as iconic species, then you are conserving the whole habitat or ecosystem. Even other small species that you may think they're small in your eyes or in your heart, they are being protected because it's an ecosystem. It's connected. In Acholi, the DH, an elephant is their totem. In Bali, where I come from, we have those sacred places that before you go for circumcision, you go there. A snake is there, it's protected. It protects the wetland. So every tribe, I think, in this country has had a very strong totemic or cultural systems that protect. But we are saying now it has been detached. And I told you there is a model that we are using called CU. Connect these people back to nature, connect them to wildlife, make them understand by giving them knowledge and skills so that they change behavior. You inspire them so that they become what we call stewards of the environment. And therefore, you will see them acting. And this is what we are doing through producing materials with Ministry of Education, the National Curriculum Development Center, so that these things are taught in schools. If they are not taught, these young people only concentrate on academics, gets first class, you get professor was a very powerful, but throwing bottles through the window because it's completely detached from environment. So, totemic systems are very important.
Very interesting when you talk about ways of conserving these animals and of course their relevancy to us. But what are some of the challenges from the Uganda Wildlife Authority? Because I know for David, once the animals are within this protected area, the zoo, there is security. However late you want to loiter from there, it is guarded very well. But now you who is in charge of those in protected and those in outside protected areas.
Yeah, well, the challenges are many, for sure. There's, of course, poaching. We have very many people going into the national park to kill these wild animals. We have illegal wildlife trade. You know, this is one of the major problems that we're facing right now. People are doing trade on international scale in wildlife species. So this illegal wildlife trade is one of the challenges that has caused the numbers of the populations of the wildlife to go down or to even become extinct for some species. For example, now we have the pangolins are almost, they're endangered because the Chinese are exporting
yearning for their
scales, you know. So those are some of the challenges we have. We have, of course, besides the poaching and there's definitely encroachment on most of these with habitats that were, you know, around for the animals that are outside the protected areas. In Kampala here, let's not go so far. Kampala and the outskirts of Kampala, people have cleared forests, they've cleared places to put up, you know, buildings and expand agriculture expansion. So in the end, you find that animals that initially used to live there no longer have where to stay. So they go into people's homes. That's why you see people being called, they call Uganda Wildlife Authority, they call WAKE to come and secure snakes from people's homes, monkeys, Animals are moving into communities. The other day we were in Kamuli for a rescue of a leopard that is terrorizing the communities. It's eating people's goats and things like that. Why? Because people have cut down the habitats. People have destroyed all these habitats for agriculture to expand, because the population is going high, as I already mentioned. The population is growing, and yet the land is not increasing. So we will have these challenges of human-wildlife conflict. We have challenges of course, there are also diseases sometimes that can, become a big challenge to our national parks. But Uganda Wildlife Authority does so much through our veterinary coordinators and vets down on the ground to ensure that there's routine monitoring of these animal diseases so that they do not spread out, because that can also be a problem if a species is wiped out because of a disease. So there are quite a number of challenges that we have, but we're not seated. We're trying to see how we can ensure that we protect this wildlife. We have law enforcement. We have actually we're about to pass out new rangers who are going to be part of the enforcement, or part of this force that is going to be trying to move and patrol and protect the animals in the national parks, to make sure that people don't enter to poach, we don't enter for illegal activities in the national parks. And also we have intelligence, we have departments of investigations that are doing a lot of work to curb down on illegal wildlife trade that is happening in the country. Yeah, so that is what Uganda Wildlife Authority is doing.
Well, our viewers, it is all about conserving these animals in the wild. Either they are protected or not protected, but we really need them, because we do not want to hear they're extinct and we talk about them like the stories of the dinosaur. That they were once there. I don't know, I would have loved in this modern day to look at what a dinosaur was.
I know.
That what we hear was as huge as what, but there is nowhere to find it. And a number of animals that got extinct. Now when you talk about the northern white rhino,
the northern white rhino,
which was once in Uganda, when we talk about the Rugave, this is even, people belong to certain clan, but the way they are taking its scales. And people tell you that meat in some countries, it is believed it increases manhood, women who lactate. There's so much around, and the poor thing is being hunted down, and also it's even defenseless. Apart from its long tongue, I don't think it's very harmful to anyone. But here, David, help us. The zoo can do so much, even when you have so many zoos. We have, but what does it take for someone to have some of these animals that we consider to be in the wild, but you can domesticate them? For example, I grew up when people would have monkeys in their homes. You would find a monkey. People would have parrots in their homes. I'm told even snakes, but that was more for these in chaka 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 chaka. That they would have their snakes. Then I also grew up hearing that there would be like leopards that is somewhere on a well and all that, and the community respects it, it doesn't hurt people. They had whatever they would believe regarding such animals. But today, all this has been criminalized. Someone told me I wanted a monkey. Said no, told me, hey, you get arrested. Then a friend had a parrot. I woke up, I said, where are your parrot? I had to let it go, brother. Then they were hunting for us. If they find you with a parrot. Like, now, what is the problem? So first, what does it take to have this? Because I'm told now it is not for everybody, though there are those that have them. And why did we come up with this no unless you've been licensed?
Yes, from our point of view, from Uganda Wildlife Conservation point of view, we work very closely with Uganda Wildlife Authority.
Definitely.
And there is a law, Uganda Wildlife Act 2019. It has stipulated very clearly, how do you use wildlife, how do you keep wildlife at home? Through the use rights, wildlife use right. You need to apply to get a license at UWA. For us as UWEC, we have the technical capacity to help you to look after this wildlife in what we call ex-situ environment, out of the wild. In an environment like the zoo, we have the capacity, and we have helped so many to look after wildlife. So long as you have got wildlife illegally, through the use right, license, you get a license. There are many facilities that we have helped across the country that you cannot wake up and just capture a monkey and you keep it in your home. It used to happen, but that's not good. Why? Because we have found out that some people keep even monkeys, they starve them, they torment them, they use them for funny things, in rituals. We have had people having pythons, playing them on the street, giving them alcohol, confusing people that this is a human being, it's not a snake. Tormenting people in a way, confusing people, which is not good. So if you want to keep wildlife,
a very strong native doctor must have some python somewhere,
python.
A monkey seated on his shoulder.
And do you know that we have picked so many from Kampala here, Nasana here, Kalerwe. You find someone claiming to be a witch doctor
with his cobra.
With a cobra here. They have removed the fangs. The python, they have made them drunk, taking a waraji, and then deceiving people that you see, this is a spiritual, is what? No, we have picked them. We pick them, take them to Entebbe, and some of them we have released them in the Murchison Falls National Park. So there are clear guidelines. And that's why this day is happening tomorrow in Tororo. Get time and come. If you cannot make it Tororo, come to Entebbe. Our offices are open. If you cannot make it to Entebbe, go to UWA, near Uganda, Ugandan Museum. They will give you a lot of information. Then living in uncertainty, you are not sure. You go and keep a parrot, you'll be arrested and be prosecuted in courts of what? Of law. Just get this wildlife through a transparent, clear systems. Guidance are very clear. And you benefit from these resources, treasures that God gave us, that are sustainable. Because if you continue harvesting like that, within a very short time, if everybody goes to just grab whatever is in the wild, and you know the habitats have been reduced. In the past, we used to have vast habitat for wildlife with migratory corridors. Elephants could move from Ruero up to Masindi, up to Murchison Falls. But now all these corridors have been removed. So you find that wildlife is just in very small areas. Now if everybody goes to just pick anyhow, even now it's worse, there's trafficking, as she has said. People are exporting, harvesting. There's one time we found a consignment of about 150 cobs were harvested within one week in Ruero. And they had packed them for export at that rate. Do you think these treasures that make Uganda called Pearl of Africa, we shall have them in the next 10 years?
No.
And that's why institutions like UWEC, institutions like UWA exist to regulate so that everybody benefits. Not this mafia. We have mafia group few who have connections to Chinese in Beijing or in Saudi Arabia, and these few are the only people benefiting from wildlife. But for us, what we want is every Ugandan to benefit from wildlife.
every Ugandan to benefit from wildlife.
Yes.
We can achieve that with more sensitization and of course more appreciation. Now also if you can get a permit, a license to have this, I hope it is not a very hectic process.
No, it's not.
It isn't?
No, it's not. Just come to Uganda Wildlife Authority, express your interest in which species you want to. Of course, there are species that you can get a license to keep. And it's as smooth as it can be. So just whoever is interested in wildlife ranching, whoever is interested in, owning a parrot or something, the procedure is as simple as write to the executive director, show interest. If they are available, they will